All right, so that's the middle component, the customer, looking through the lens of the customer. So now the second element to the customer experience is your physical environment. And if you don't have a physical environment, it could be your website that they see. It could be you in your uniform or presence in itself. But it's everything your customer sees, hears, smells, and touches before they even see you or an employee. Have you ever walked into a restaurant and smelled something or saw something and you said, nope, family, we're not eating here? All right? So it has an impact, does it not? So what is your message saying? Is it sending the message of trust? Is it sending the message of peace of mind? If I get your brochure and I see that you've got misspells all over it, I'm not too sure I want to do business with you if you're in the accounting business or insurance business, right? So even, you know, when I go into locations such as blood banks or hospitals and doctors' offices, those environments are speaking messages in the lobby areas, the waiting room areas, and just because you're not-for-profit doesn't mean you have to look cheap and look poor. It simply means that you have to recognize, looking through the lens of the customer, what's going to carry across your message that you've determined. So that's everything speaks. Everything speaks in your physical environment. One of the best stories that I've heard over time of a leader trying to share that with one of their employees was actually George Miliotis, who used to be the chef at the top of the world. He then started Seasons 52. And what he would do anytime he would hire an employee, he wanted them to see the impact of the environment on the customer experience. So in this particular case, he had hired a dishwasher. And he invited the dishwasher to come have lunch with him before he started his shift that evening. Now, he took him into one of those beautiful ballrooms at the Contemporary Hotel, and it was a preset table, just as beautifully as these are done here. The chairs were even dressed as well, though. And the table was preset, but George had done a little bit of pre-work before the dishwasher actually came in to join him. He'd put a little bit of crusted food on one of the forks, and the glass where the employee was going to be sitting, he had smeared a little bit of lipstick on it. So as they were sitting down to lunch, George started to share the importance of the environment and the impact that every single employee has on the guest experience. And at about that time, as the dishwasher picked up the fork, he was like, ew. And then he took a sip of the drink and he looked at the glass. And he says, yuck. And at that point, that's when George said, it doesn't matter what role you have in this organization, we all have to work together to ensure that the environment speaks, to our guests what we want it to. That we can design the best menus, we can have the prettiest laid out tables, but it all comes to each one of us and the value and the impact we have. So, we talked about the lens of the customer. The second element was everything speaks in your physical environment. The next element is the service delivery. It's the people part. This is now the interaction. And the first tip or technique, not really a technique, but thought I'd like to share with you is that you've got to treat everyone as an individual. Why do we all go back to the Starbucks? Why do we all go back to those places that treat us familiar? It's because they make us feel good and they make us feel special in this world today of so many people and just numbers. The second thought is that it's the little things you do. It's the little things that make a difference. I have a cell phone and just had it upgraded and was having a problem with it. I was out of state and couldn't retrieve messages. I knew my kids had tried to call me. So I was waiting in line to get my rental car and thought, well, heck, I'll just call and see if I can't take care of the problem real quickly. I got the telephone company provider on the line, and the gentleman said, hello, my name is Steve. May I have your name? And I said, Teri Yanovitch. He said, Ms. Yanovitch, how may I help you? And I said, well, I'm out of town. Actually, I'm out of state. I think that there's a little mechanism that I haven't set because I'm not getting my messages. He said, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you, but I know exactly who can. Do you have 4 minutes? Well, I looked at where I was standing in line to the front of the rental counter. I said, yeah, I got 4 minutes. He said, okay. So in about 2.5 minutes, he got back on the line, and he said, Ms. Yanovitch, I have Susan on the other end. I have explained your situation, and she knows that she can help you. I'm going to bow to the conversation. I hope you have a safe trip. Was that a wow? That was Verizon Wireless. Was that a wow or not? Those are the little things. You don't have to be the Nordstroms and do the great big things. I've heard stories of where they, will accept something that you bought 30 years ago and replace it and return it. You don't have to do that. It's the little things in the service delivery. And then finally, it's the consistency of it. If that was my only one experience that I had and it was great, okay, fine. But that doesn't build the trust. I have to be able to call them back time and time again and get that same type of service, which is going to, over the period of my experiences, build the trust with me as a customer and make me a loyal customer. All right? The fourth component to the ideal customer experience are your processes. Do you make it easy to do business with you, or do you make it difficult? And sometimes what happens is we actually put our employees into the position where they become victims of our processes that we have put into place as an organization. I have an 18-year-old son, and he wanted a DVD player at Christmas. That was when I'd asked him. So I thought, okay, that's fine. I went to one of the big buy stores and stood in line because they had already had a special line. This was only like 2 weeks prior to Christmas time, and they had a special line to quickly get you through some of the bigger appliances. So I took the player up, and the cashier, without even looking up, accepted, and ran it and scanned it through. And I gave him my credit card, and he ran that through. And as he gave the receipt back to me, I said, do you have a pen? As he continued to work at his cash register doing who knows what, not even looking up, he said, no, I don't. So I went scrambling through my purse trying to find a pen, and finally did, signed the receipt, gave it back to him, and I said, would you mind stapling the receipt to the paperwork of the player so that I've got it all together just in case there's any problems? He actually stopped what he was doing. He turned and he looked at me and he said, lady, if I don't have a pen, do you think I have a stapler? Oh my God. But once again, processes in place, yet we don't quite have the tools or the resources providing. Yes, definitely, I think at that stage of the game. Yeah. So it's taking a look, ladies and gentlemen, at those 4 elements. Do you look through the lens of the customer when you're designing your processes? Do you look through the lens of the customer when you're answering the questions? Do they come to you because they're anxious, because they're nervous, because they're worried? If so, identify with what their emotions are, then meet their needs. And I guarantee you they will walk away saying, wow, I didn't expect them to treat me as nicely as that. Or, wow, they acted as if they cared. The second element is everything speaks. Go back today and look at fresh eyes at your facilities if you have facilities. If you don't have facilities and you have a vehicle, that's the impression that people have of you. Is it clean? Is it washed? Are the letters all appropriately on it? And then thirdly, recognize the service delivery. It's treating people as individuals. VIP, I've heard the term used, which typically to most people means very important person. Turn it around. Let it stand for very individual person. Make your customers feel like individuals. And it's the little things that count, as well as the consistency. And then finally, your processes. Do you make it easy to do business? Do you make it a pleasure and no hassle to do business with you? Customer service, the ideal customer experience has got to be planned and it's got to be managed. It doesn't just happen. If it does, it's luck. And so I'd like to leave you with one of my favorite quotes of a wise old man by the name of Aristotle. We are what we do repeatedly. Therefore, excellence is not an act, but a habit. So I thank you very much.